On this episode of Game Shack, AtGames' legendary 4K pinball game is one step closer to being released to the public. We now have a test unit out in the wild. We're going to take a look at the good, the bad, the ugly, availability, how much this thing's going to cost, and should you think about picking one up. We're going to talk all about it coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I'm your host, JDV, for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thank you for stopping by. Please, if you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up on the way out the door. And if you haven't subscribed, and I know a lot of you guys haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. I'll love you even more than I already do. Let's kind of jump right into it. Right off the bat, I want to thank John Wagner over at Wagner's Tech Talk, where he allowed me to use some of the video. He is the one that has the test unit out there right now, so he's really been breaking down the specs, the hardware, everything like that. So for a much more in-depth look at this game, check out John's videos, and I'll also have links down below to his frequently asked questions page, to his videos, and to his main page and all that kind of good stuff. Thank you, John Wagner. Well, we're going on 2.5, 3 years since the Gen 1 ALP was released, and during that entire time, I've been recommending it as the best gateway drug, so to speak, into the realm of virtual pinball. It still offers the best bang for buck on the mass market today. There's a lot of things to love about the ALP, but this video is going to talk about if you already own the first gen ALP, should you think about upgrading to this, or if you are getting into the realm of virtual pinball, should you pick up this 4K version, say versus building your own, getting a higher end model, or just sticking with the HD version. And the most bottom line thing that I can say right off the bat is that this game or this cab is going to be an improvement in almost every single way possible over the original HD. You're going to have a true 4K Playfield. You're going to have that much bigger back box, 3 inches bigger. You're going to have a 24-inch back box monitor plus a 9-inch DMD monitor. So a true 3-screen setup, which is what almost everybody wants to have in a virtual pinball game. You're going to have built-in solenoids, built-in haptics. You're going to have the plunger and all the other buttons that you would want to have or are existent on the already HD model. That's also going to have a built-in VIBS board and 3 HDMI inputs, one for each monitor. So if you're going to want to run your own pinball game, say VPX or Future Pinball or Zen or any other kind of pinball game off of your PC, you're going to be able to do it right out of the box on this game. In terms of the depth of the cabinet, it's a little bit deeper. It just looks more like a higher end virtual pinball game slash real pinball game. It's going to have black legs, coin doors, just about all the kind of bells and whistles that you want. It's not perfect, and I'll talk about some of the negatives towards the end of the video, but right out of the box, it really is an outstanding looking machine that should deliver the next generation of virtual pinball goodness. Now, that said, the footage that you see in this video, the footage that John shot, is from a pre-production unit. It's not a production model, so there could be things to change, and there are some things that aren't locked down. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. But because they are looking at a December 15th drop date or release date, I'm guessing that this thing is 95%, 99% already locked down. The legs are going to be black, not chrome the way you kind of see in the video. Looks like the coin door might be shifted down. There might be a few other things. They have not settled on how many games are going to be on there. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But by and large, what we see in this video is, I suspect, what we're going to have in the final product. Well, what is the final product going to look like? Well, right off the bat, it has the same size screen as the original HD, and realistically, the body is pretty close. Obviously, the backboard's a lot bigger, but the main difference, at least in terms of the playfield, is that you are getting a true 4K monitor. And that, of course, is going to really help the realism. You can see here in John's video that as he moves the camera around, the field of view or the angle of view looks really good, depending on no matter really where he puts the camera. And that leads me to suspect that it's probably not an OLED monitor, but it could be a QLED monitor, just a step below OLED. OLED is, in fact, the magic sauce that if you're going to build your own 4K pinball game, because it really does crush the blacks and allows you to view the monitor from anywhere and still have that 3D kind of look, But for a mass production unit type machine, the monitor looks very, very good to my eyes, almost shockingly so. One of the questions I had right off the bat, still talking about the Playfield monitor, is was AtGames going to just simply up-res the games that they already had the rights to, or were they going to take it back to the wood shop and start from the ground up and rebuild those games into true 4K games? Well, the good news is it looks like that's exactly what they did. They did not simply up-res, but they went back, actually rebuilt these games from the ground up, and you're seeing, to my eye, much better ball movement on there. The Playfield looks much, much better, less pixelated, less grainy than we had in the original, and the blacks and everything like that look deeper, crisper to me on this 4K screen. Just in terms of how the game looks, it's going to look significantly better. I suspect it will play better, and the games that you have on your PC are going to look fantastic on this thing too. Let's take a little bit a look at the back box monitor, which is almost 24 inches across diagonally, which is pretty flippin' huge. The fact that it's 24 is pretty impressive when you think about the fact that Arcade 1-Up's pinball game, the main Playfield, is only a ½ inch bigger than the back box is going to be on the ALP 2. That's pretty amazing. And we're getting a 9-inch DMD on there, so your scores and things like that come up on there. That is really cool. 3 monitors is really what you want to have in a virtual pinball game, because then you can have that beautiful back box, you have the score, and then of course the Playfield monitor. So that is all to the good. But it's not all roses, because you're not going to be able to replace any of those monitors down the line if you wanted to. None of these monitors have HDMI inputs. So while you can interact with those monitors using the HDMI inputs on the back of the machine, you're not going to actually be able to replace those monitors and still play the stock games on there or use the operating system at all. So that is a little bit of a disappointment, and something that I hope AtGames addresses down the line. But for now, know that it has 3 monitors. They're all pretty big and they all look pretty juicy. Talk a little bit about sound. The speakers are bigger, I think 1.5 inches bigger in the front. They're going to have the same kind of haptic feedback that they had in there. You're going to be able to get an auxiliary SSF kit, which essentially allow you to have kind of a 3D sound effect, which is really, really cool. I would absolutely advise you do that should you buy this machine. We don't know how much the price of that is going to be, so keep your eyes peeled for that, but hopefully not too much. Anyway, the sound looks to be much better, although it does not have a built-in subwoofer, at least it doesn't appear to, so that is a strike against it. Again, though, that SSF auxiliary kit will allow you to add that down the line. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's under the hood. What kind of computer firepower does it have in the CPU? And the answer is not a bad amount. The fact is that this is a much more powerful unit than the original 2K version of the ALP. Of course, it already is having to run 3 independent monitors, so that is already an extra taxing thing on the CPU. And of course, the main Playfield is 4K, so that's even more firepower. It's just got to run more things. The interesting thing about this game, something that I think a lot of people hope for, something I hope for, was 120 hertz, 120 frames per second in terms of what kind of signal it was spitting out. It's not going to be that. It's going to be 60 frames per second, and that's kind of a bummer to some. However, I will say right off the bat that there are a lot of future pinball games, particularly by the legendary Slam Tilt, who just makes some outstanding tables that are only at 60 hertz. I think the reality is that 60 hertz is pretty much okay for almost every pinball game out there. That's because for a lot of games, the only thing that's really moving are the flippers, the bumpers, and the ball itself. Of course, there'll be lighting effects and things like that, but the reality is that as long as the ball looks smooth, and it does look smooth in the footage that I've seen, that's your biggest worry. In fact, I think the motion of the ball looks a lot better than it did on the 2K version. But I don't know about the monitor, whether or not that can spit out 120 hertz or not. That remains to be seen. And the reason why that matters is because you might have a couple of games that you play on your PC setup that are at 120 hertz that you want to keep at that frame rate. I'm not sure if the main Playfield can absorb that, if it can actually spit out 120 or if it's limited to 60 hertz or not. We're going to learn that coming down the line, but just know that right for now, if you intend on using just the built-in games, those are going to be 60 frame per second game. Let's talk a little bit about the cabinet, how it looks and everything like that. The back box is obviously much better looking, much more pro. Looks like something that you could get from arcade.com and some of the other third-party places that make back boxes. It looks really good. Obviously, you need to have a bigger back box for that bigger monitor and that third monitor DMD. So that's all the good. Really, the only negative I have on this cab is the fact that it doesn't look like it's going to be branded. It's going to have that same multi-cade branding, at least that's what we see so far. And that's a little bit of a letdown. I think most of us would rather have a branded cab, whatever that is, than have a multi-cade type thing. I know I would. Your mileage might vary, of course. Coming down the line, AtGames might have skins available. I know other people are going to have skins available for this thing. So, you know, you're going to be able to make this thing look the way you want eventually, but probably out of the box, it's going to be that unbranded multi-cade type look, which is, I mean, it's okay. Not great. What are you going to do? All right, what are some of the other cool things that this game has? Well, one are built-in solenoids, and that's going to be for your left and right flipper. So every time you hit those flipper buttons, you're going to hear a click-clack on either side. That is really cool. It really does add to the experience of playing virtual pinball game. At least it does in mine. But there is somewhat of a letdown in the fact that we don't have another pair or two of those solenoids built into the cab that would simulate the ball hitting bumpers or side rails or things like that. That is a letdown because that can really amp the experience to an even higher level than you already going to get. I've already mentioned the fact that there's no bass thumper speaker in there. I also don't expect there to be a bass shaker or a shaker motor in there that would spin around, say like when Godzilla moves or some of the other things. So it doesn't have everything. It doesn't have built-in LEDs in the back box or the Playfield itself. That could have been a nice little thing to have. Maybe, again, we'll have a higher end model or an accessory kit down the line, but it's not included on this version. All right, what are some other interesting things about this 4K unit? Well, one is it has a brand new user interface that looks absolutely fantastic. Looks like Pin-Up Popper, a little bit like maybe Pinball Emporium. You're going to have that kind of circle design. You can use the tile design if you really kind of like that. But this was another thing that I really hoped and really had to happen in this unit, is that they had an improved user interface, and they do. It looks, not only does it look a lot better, I'm guessing all of the games are going to be, they're going to have, so if you hit this button, it'll do this in this game. It'll do the same thing in each game, which is not true in the Alt Gen 1. Depending on what game you're hitting, you might have to hit another series, a different series of buttons to get it to work. That was a huge pain in the butt, particularly if you had visitors playing the game. They just simply wouldn't be able to figure it out, particularly if they had had a few adult beverages, if you know what I mean. So that is a huge improvement. Besides the user interface upgrade, it looks like the loading time of the games has been significantly made faster. In fact, 3 times faster. You go from around 30 seconds to load an HD game on the ALP1 to 10 seconds to load a 4K game, which again, to me, is another indication of just how much more powerful this CPU is in real life. So that is really good news. So what are all these improvements going to cost? Well, that is a $64,000 question, because the answer is, as I record this at the end of August in 2023, we don't know. There is no MSRP. I am a part of the influencer group over at AtGames, and right now they haven't told us how much this thing cost. So I don't know what to tell you, so we're just kind of up in the air. I can tell you that if this thing comes in at $1199 to $999, somewhere between that $1,000 and $1,200 price point, I think it would be an incredible bargain. Something that will hopefully get even more people involved in a virtual pinball. Something that would make you maybe think twice about building your own unit. I think if it is $11.99 or less, it should be a day one buy for basically anybody interested in virtual pinball. All right, so I know I went pretty fast in this video and I didn't cover everything. So if you have any questions, please ask me down below and I will try to get to them. Check out John's video and webpage, because he is just a font of information, just on video games in period, but particularly on this type thing. Anyway, if there's something I missed or got wrong, again, let me know below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Are you interested in picking up this cab? Because I know I sure as heck am, even though I already have a couple of really nice pinball games myself. Again, let me know down below. All right, love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.